Okay, you're ready.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting for the month of October. I'm Fred Payon, I'm the chairman. Let's have a roll call. Honestly, it looks like everybody's here. Mr. Kirchner is here. Mr. Cardillo.
Here.
City Manager, Alderwoman Tierney,
Here.
Alderwoman Pendel Charles,
Here.
and Alderman Payon. We are here. Okay, let me start off by varying slightly from the agenda. We'll go to the review and approval of the agenda, and then review and hopefully approval of the Audit Committee minutes for September 21st. Has anyone had the opportunity to look at the agenda? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda with the modification from the chair to move the educational topics down to item 5 and move 4 and 5 up.
Yes, that's exactly what I had in mind. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. The agenda is approved, as amended. The Audit Committee minutes. Anybody had the opportunity to review the minutes? Okay, Jim's nodding his head yes. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept last month's minutes.
Yes, I think it was a job well done. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Alderwoman Pendel Charles. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. The next item of business is our educational topic speakers. First among them is Brian Paquin, our MIT manager. Brian, good morning and welcome to the Audit Committee.
Morning, sir.
Brian is relatively new at his position, not new to the department by any means, but as the director, how long has it been? Nine or 10 months?
I became acting in November, so coming up on a year on that. I was confirmed in April.
Okay. Well, Brian is here to tell us a little bit about management information technology and talk a little bit about the money, the paltry sum that they receive from the cheap city council, and tell us about what they do with the money. Brian, the floor is yours.
Okay. Basically, our overall mission, which I had queued up here and I've lost it already. This is starting well. We provide support to various departments across the city of Annapolis for all manner of technology. Basically, I always like to say our job is to make sure everyone else can do their job. We are a team of 10. Myself, we have 2 analysts positions, 2 support positions, webmaster, GIS coordinator. We have a GIS technician that reports directly to the coordinator. And then support a network engineer whose overall responsibility is the health and well-being of the network infrastructure. And we also have a, God, I can't even remember the name of the position right now. Recent hire, Taylor McDowell, is kind of our out front, you're not supposed to use the word secretary anymore, administrative support analyst, I believe is her position. So we're fully staffed now for the first time since Paul Thorne left almost 5 years ago. We had a position frozen, and we had an interim MIT manager for a very long time. So we had a lot of people wearing multiple hats, but I'm very happy to say that we're back to a full staff of 10, which, obviously salaries and benefits is the biggest, by far the biggest chunk of our budget.
How big is your budget?
Our 21 accepted budget was just about $2 million even, including
Okay.
salaries and benefits, of which that $2 million was $1.25 million in salaries and benefits. Another $500,000 of contractual services, about $250,000 of capital outlay, and then some supplies, some training, things like that make up the rest of that.
Okay, like capital outlay, you mean what?
Buying stuff you can touch, physical servers, switches, monitors, PCs, laptops, those sorts of things.
Okay. Go ahead. You can continue before you were so rudely interrupted.
Oh, no. I was starting to run out of things to say, sir. So I could use a little guidance as to like where else we'd like to go from there, please.
Well, okay. Are there any questions? Yes, Jim.
I got a
Cardillo.
couple. Thank you, Brian. A couple questions. How many users do you support?
We have roughly 600 end users.
Wow.
Which, believe it or not, is a pretty small environment. When you start moving up to the county level and obviously the state level, you're dealing in thousands and tens of thousands. We have 550 desktops in the field. We have about another 125 laptops in the field. Of course, a lot of those users overlap. They have a desktop in their office and they have a laptop that they travel with. Excuse me, I forgot to mute my desk phone. Server infrastructure, we're down to about 28 physical servers. That number is decreasing because we're moving forward with a virtualization effort to reduce our footprint in our data center, try to reduce our energy consumption and cooling usage and things like that. And believe it or not, by virtualizing, we also improve our redundancy and our disaster recovery capability.
Thanks. One question. We're all aware of the ransomware attack that occurred in Baltimore last year. And I'm sure that you work with outside professionals to assess threats, and that's an ongoing thing, right? Do you feel that we're a step ahead right now, or we're
in this line of work, it's best not to become boastful. It's always good to remain humble. We have partnered in the last calendar year with an intrusion detection provider that we work very closely with, and we've been very impressed with so far. Of course, at the end of the day, your best bet, your best protection against ransomware is making sure all of your endpoints are protected and updated. So staying on top of updates is a key priority for us. So without getting into too many specifics for obvious reasons, but yes, we feel like we do a pretty good job. But again, it's best to remain humble and always, kind of know that there are really smart people out there that if they put their mind to it could get to you. So we do our best.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry about your tragedy this past weekend. And Rhonda, thank you for your leadership, and David, as usual. Is it appropriate to ask about some of the performance measures?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. I'll throw some softballs, I hope. Brian, one of our goals is to get hits to our city website, and I was one of your performance measures. It's the last one, and is the number of a percent increase of website hits to access data, GIS data. Has that increased? Is my question.
Well, yeah, and I actually had a pretty good conversation with Sean about this on Friday. So clearly some of the pandemic, not to sound like we're punting here, but Sean's been heavily involved with pandemic response as far as recovery zones.
This is Sean Wampler.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. That's the GIS coordinator, Sean Wampler. She's been heavily involved with the recovery zones. She put together the restaurant finder as far as who is open for carry out and things like that, trying to boost support for the local restaurants when the recovery zones weren't quite ready yet. We were just trying to really help drive some carry out business to the local restaurants. That being said, I do have some numbers as far as the Comeback Annapolis site, coast and shoreline, critical area boundary. These are some of the layers that have been brought up online as far as additional layers available to the public. Without any real frame of reference, the hit numbers may not necessarily mean a whole heck of a lot, but Comeback Annapolis is about 3,500 hits since it's been brought online. Critical area boundary about 3,000. The Annapolis Police Department hub's about a little north of 2,000 hits. But yeah, again, I understand that doesn't have necessarily a lot of contextual value because these are so new. As we move forward into the second half of the year, we'd like to see those numbers be on a steady increase. So it'll be a little easier, I hope, to paint a clear picture in the second half of the year.
Thank you so much for that. If that has been a true value during this time. And my last question, and it's impressive, is the training that you've implemented. I know I've learned a lot on security, and had you check a couple of emails that I've gotten because I've been so full. But how are you doing on training? Do you have a data point as far as number of hours trained or education?
The training and education goal is more for our staff in interior, the actual MIT staff. The security mentor thing that you're talking about, we feel great about. We're at north of 70% participation for city staff in that, which talking to some of our peers, even with a lot of organizations will implement some sort of gamification, as they call it, to these sorts of things to try to improve participation. Even without those sorts of incentives, 70% participation is really great. So as far as our end users and getting that information and that training out to them, we feel has been very successful. We actually just renewed. We've got 6 brand new lessons coming down the pipe on that starting next month. As far as inside MIT staff, Melissa Martin, who is fairly recent hire, hired over the summer to backfill my position, just completed Cisco training, Cisco CCNA training. So that's going to be a big help, helping out Pete with the network infrastructure stuff. Sean Wampler has been involved in probably 50 plus hours of where is that? Across 3 conferences, one of which she was a big part of actually helping to put together. And our analysts actually just last week completed a Munis training module. So really trying to keep our staff here at MIT involved with their peers and taking advantage of opportunities to get them additional training, I think is going to help speak to what Mr. Cardillo was talking about as far as just keeping everybody on their toes and making sure that we're up to speed on the things that are going on around us.
Okay, and I'm cheating and adding one more. Are you involved in, I hear sometimes about the finance department trying to get on their same software. Are you involved in that, trying to have each department talk to each other financially? Is that your software, or is that all?
Yes, that's Carrie Kramer, who's our lead MIT software analyst. She is we're rolling out modules, one right after the other. That's part of goal number 1, is to kind of flatten what we've got going on across departments. Just recently, they've rolled out a check request module, purchase card, credit card module is in testing now and almost ready to be rolled out. A timekeeping program that will work across all departments is actually partially rolled out, and we're moving forward on that. And the big news is the potential new permitting software coming to planning and zoning that is part of the Tyler Technologies family, which would integrate very well with our existing ERP product.
I can add a little bit. They have been instrumental in helping us get ADP lined up. ADP is going to be doing the tail end of our payroll process. And since that's connected, that's uses Munis data. Carrie's been instrumental in getting us up on that. And we're getting ready to go live on the wage payment element of that within the next few weeks. And they're also lining up other modules, features within modules that we have, for instance, for having utility billings and general billings sent out by email instead of by paper. That's something we have the feature, we have to implement it though. And then also sending out our AP checks via ACH, which is something we have the ability to do, but we have to have a little implementation help. And that just goes to show you how stretched those two, Stephanie and Carrie, are going to be, because there's always constantly things going on with implementation features, and we need to get a little more automated. They've been helping.
We keep those two. Stephanie Connor is the second analyst. I hadn't mentioned her name yet. We keep those two extremely busy, and we have a kind of a game plan for them moving forward over the next 12 months that will continue to keep them very busy with rollouts.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know that you're under literally a lot of stress with the recovery and the financial challenge we have ahead of us. And we're here if you need anything except money.
Well, thank you very much. It's very
David's
kind.
not laughing. Okay.
Well, you can tell how he relieves his stress, can't you? Look at that banner up on the wall behind him.
Yeah, it's a sickness.
Mr. Gerald.
If I could, before we leave MIT, and maybe there's more questions, but just a couple of things about MIT. So when the coronavirus hit and we had to close down everything, we had not planned to have a large portion of our workforce work remotely from home. And I can tell you that without MIT, we would have totally been unsuccessful, but because of their efforts, and they were just amazing efforts, we transitioned from everybody coming in the office one day, practically the next day, to having people working from home because they were able to get them set up from an IT perspective. And you all understand how important our IT tools are to our performance day to day. So due to Brian's leadership and the performance of MIT, we were able to keep operating in an effective way. And we continue to today. People are still, generally that can work from home, do work from home. And that's because of all the support that Brian and his team provide. So they've been actually absolutely superb in all of that. Wanted to mention about why he's here this morning, because Alderman Payon and I talked about this plan to have each of the departments come in turn to this meeting to brief what they do and especially the performance measures. So thank you, Ellie, for bringing that up. We'd like for each of them to just introduce you to their performance measures. I know you've seen the documents, but to hear it from the office I think is worthwhile. After we get through all the departments, I'd like for them to start coming back then to report to you how they're performing against their performance measures and standards. So hopefully we'll be able to keep this going, that we have a couple or three departments at each meeting to give you an update on their performance measures. First to introduce them to you, and then those performance measures, but then to update you how they're performing. The last thing is Brian used to have a full head of hair until our e-Trackit system started failing. And some of you may have heard about that, but this is a really big issue because it allows the public to see how development projects are moving along. and we're not getting adequate vendor support. And so Brian has been working and working and working as staff as well to try to get the vendor to provide security patches or an updated system to allow us to get eTrack-It back online. And that has not happened yet. So they've come up with a workaround system that they're implementing so the public can see what's going on with all those projects. And as he mentioned, we're in the process of buying a Tyler Technology product to replace that. But unfortunately, that's going to take time. It's going to take, 6 to 8 months, Brian, to get that fully implemented. So we've got to have a work around during that period until we have that system stood up. So Brian and his team are working on that. And hopefully we can get eTrack-It back up for the interim. But if not, they're working on this other system. So MIT is a great office, a great department, and they've done wonderful things for the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paquin, for everything that you're doing for us and your staff. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Very kind words. I'll be sure to relay
Yes,
it off
thank
to the staff. I'm really blessed with a lot of awesome people over here, and they make
Thank
me better than I probably should.
Brian, is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, sir. I think we got to everything I wanted to say. I'm happy to answer any further questions that you guys might have.
I've had a hand up.
Go ahead, Al. Ms. Kirshner.
Good morning, Brian. Al Kirshner.
Good morning, Al. How are you, sir?
Very well. I'm interested, like in your performance. I'm looking at the performance goals. In column 1, your 2021 goals, how did you determine those?
Truthfully, I mean, the goals that we put together, we met as a team. And we kind of went through, we're not siloed in any way here, but we have people that specialize in certain pieces, right? We have the day-to-day desktop support, you have your network engineering, you have your software analysts, you have your GIS component, you have your webmaster. So pulling everybody together in a room with a big whiteboard and just kind of going over each one of these pieces and the initiatives with the team is how we came to these particular 5 goals as far as what was most important to each segment of what we do.
Okay. And what is your plan for regular reviews on performance progress? Are you going to do that quarterly? Is that part of your strategy to review these quarterly, or how are you going to do that?
Well, I was telling David when we met last week that this was a wonderful exercise for us to prepare for this meeting, to get everyone together. Of course, during the pandemic, we've got several people that work from home full time. We have some people that come into the office partially. We have a couple people that come into the office every day. But it was a really good exercise to pull everybody together, because we do get kind of lost in our day to day. So actually having this meeting on my agenda got us all together to do exactly that. And what it opened my eyes to is that we weren't necessarily doing a great job of that through the pandemic so far. But yeah, we want to get together quarterly moving forward and just continue to add to these slides with progress bullets and just make sure that by June we are where we want to be.
Okay. 7 years ago, when I was on the Panelides transition team, we learned from the fire department that they were devoting 80 hours a month to doing manual time and attendance that Munis couldn't handle. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that. We are working very closely with the fire department now, another Tyler Technologies product called ExecuTime, to try to eliminate the paper from their process and hopefully a mess of hours from that process. It is a lot of that is I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. Just institutional, like how how we've always done it kind of thing, and it is hard to break those habits. But I feel like we've had a lot of success with the new timekeeping system, and again, we're mid rollout right now, but both of our analysts have been heavily involved with the fire department to try to streamline that process and bring it under that umbrella of our existing ERP system.
Okay, I was on the Public Safety Committee. We urged the fire department to get going and start to find a benchmark out there. There's 24,000 fire departments in America, and they can't all be experiencing the same problem. And I'd like to see you work with the fire department and a major push to get that solved. 80 hours, including a battalion chief and a senior administrative person, administrative aide to the fire chief. It's just unbelievable. 80 hours a month is a huge bill.
A lot of man hours, sir. I agree.
Right. So, I mean, we got to shake up the fire department and get going and find a solution. We urged a lot of benchmarking in that transition team, and I still don't see it. As I look at these performance objectives, I find that they're all over the map. And this is just a general statement about all the departments, about what a benchmark is and what the performance measures are. So I hope you'll be able to at least work with the fire department. That's just a huge resource sink, and it needs to be fixed. It's been around a long time.
We couldn't agree more, sir. And yeah, the ExecuTime solution that we're implementing, I'll be eager, once that's fully rolled out, I'll be very eager to follow up with you and let you know just how much paper and time is getting saved once that's done.
Is there any time frame for the goal?
It's actually partially rolled out now.
Okay.
I would say by the end of the calendar year, we should be end users should be fully trained, and we should be using that on a bi-weekly basis to do time. So yeah, I'd be very eager on the other side of the new year to let you know how we're doing on that, sir.
Okay. Last question. You've got some great goals. What I'm curious is, have those goals been actually physically circulated to the department heads so that they can buttonhole you and ask how they can participate or benefit by your goals? I mean, they need to be coordinated.
Understood. And this was, again, part of our Finance Committee budget presentation, but they have not necessarily been formally put in front of the department heads per se. In any kind of formal way, but that I think that is probably a great idea, since we are so fully integrated in the day-to-day of all the city departments.
Yeah, you provide umbrella services to all the departments. They should know what your goals are and be able to chime in and help you refine them.
Yes, sir. I think that's a great idea. It's something that we can definitely look at getting out there in a more formalized way.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Al. That's something I hadn't really thought about. I think you're absolutely right. Brian, as you know, what you do affects everybody. So I think it's a good idea if you can go ahead and do that. That'd be great.
Yes, sir. We'll get that information disseminated in a clear way.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Gerald.
Yeah, I see Al walked away, but I was hoping to respond to his question about the tracking of the performance measures. So Al, how we have it set up is that each month we put together a city manager's monthly report. And as part of the input that we get from the departments for that monthly report, they report on their performance measures for the previous month or for whatever month is being addressed. And then each quarter, as part of the city manager's monthly report, we include an update on all the performance measures and how the departments are doing. So sort of from a citywide perspective, that's how we're having the departments track and report on the performance measures.
Well, I was trying to get the city to go to, we used a cascading system at Department of the Army, which is a huge organization, a lot of money. And there's a company in DC called Spider Technologies, and I've contacted them and tried to make that connection in the past. It's never really gotten any traction. But, just going back to my experience in Baldridge and the State Quality Award Program, and a great benchmark out there, a benchmarking organization would be Howard County Community College. They were a finalist in the past for the Governor's Quality Award. And it's just an unbelievable program out there. And there's also trying to think what's the Methodist nursing home chain here in Maryland is another one that's active in that stuff, but it shows how it can be done. There's a company up in Pennsylvania called Stoner. They make cleaning agents for cars. And we use them at Coast Guard because there are 45 people. And every time we tried to do something major at Coast Guard, our operating units would say, well, we're just a small group. We're only 60 people, 70 people. So we went to Stoner, which was 45 people, and used them for benchmarking. And again, I'm going to just throw out my view that we need some citywide training on quality systems. So as you go through these performance measures, the definitions are all over the map. I know they're at the top of each column, but benchmarks and benchmarking and performance measures, and even some of the objectives, they're all not in consonance with one another. We have a great opportunity there to bring everybody online with meaningful, measurable, and complete performance goals. Thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions, Brian, thank you very much. And we'll see you again.
Thank you, guys, and thank you all for all your kind words. I'll let everybody know.
Thank you. The next order of business is to hear from Mr. Rick Gordon, the Director of the Department of Transportation. Rick, are you anywhere to be found?
I am.
There you are. Okay.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Just fine, thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I submitted a presentation through Kim over the weekend. I just hope you all have it now.
Apparently we got it this morning.
Okay. I can run through that pretty quickly, and of course you're free to ask questions along the way or at the end of the presentation. We are the Department of Transportation. Our core responsibilities are public transit and parking management and enforcement. We provide fixed route and on-demand bus services. We have a fleet of 16 vehicles and a staff of about 38 to 40. It fluctuates a little bit. The service,
presumably. Buses?
16.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. We provide services on 4 color-coded routes: brown, green, orange, and red. And they're often referred to as the rainbow routes. These routes operate Monday through Saturday, with the exception of the orange, which operates Monday through Friday. Services during the evening hours as well as on Sundays is provided by the purple route. When the pandemic came along, we adjusted our services and began operating a modified Saturday schedule with no evening purple. And the services ran from 7:15 in the morning until 6:50 in the evening. The only exception was the state shuttle, which ran until 8 p.m. Beginning in September, we increased bus services by running a modified regular schedule, which increased frequency and added more buses on selected routes. The additional vehicles improved frequency for riders that were returning to work, and it permitted us to maintain social distancing on the buses. We still don't operate the orange route in the evening, but along with that, we were able to install petitions in our smaller buses. And at the moment, we have sort of a shower curtain sort of set up in the large buses, but we have ordered the petitions for our large buses. The parking management enforcement services include enforcement of on-street parking, management of the city-owned garages, and the residential parking program. And those services are managed by SP Plus, as many of you know already. If you go to slide 3, you'll see our revenue hours, and passenger trips for FY19, which was the last year unaffected by the pandemic. And these data are also included in the city manager's report. The next slide.
Am I the only one not seeing the slides? Is anybody else seeing them?
I have the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stuff that was attached to the email that Kim sent to us
You want-
on Friday.
Alderman, do you want me to share it to the group here?
Yeah, please.
Good idea. I have to flip.
Oh, was that me or you?
That's
Uh-oh.
you,
There
Ellie.
you go.
Oh, sorry.
Share it.
I'm sorry. Uh-oh. I don't know if I can navigate this. Wait.
You can go to slide 4.
Okay, wait, how do you do that?
Ellie, I can take over if you want.
Yeah, please. I kind of did that by accident. Okay, I'll get out. Sorry.
You ready, Hillary?
Yeah.
Okay, slide 4.
Oops. Sorry, one sec.
Here we go. Is the FY19 operating cost and revenue for transit only. As you can see, revenue consists of 600,000 in fares, MTA, FTA grants of $1.5 million. We get a county subsidy, and of course, we get revenue from advertising. We have an advertising firm that provides advertising on the buses and in our bus shelter. So slide 5. I'm pulling them up the same way. Begins our performance measures. One of them was improved transit service delivery. The baseline for this particular performance measure is the national standard at 85% on-time performance. And as of 2020, we've exceeded that for our fixed route at 89% and 100% on-time performance for our ADA services. Slide 6. One of the long-term goals was to improve bus stop amenities and accessibility. We are currently making upgrades to the Google Maps to include all of our bus stops, and we have a program to replace all of the bus stop signs throughout the city. Many of you know there's a variety of signs out there. We want to replace those with a uniform sign, and that sign could provide information for the rider to download the schedule. We're also going to be including new bus maps in all of the bus shelters, and we are working on a mobile access for bus routes and schedules. Slide 7.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I don't know if you've seen what San Francisco has on their bus shelters, and I'm sure it's many cities have this, but it will tell when the next bus is arriving. Have you seen that technology?
I've seen it in other places. In fact, it was here in Maryland for quite a while. The company, I believe at the time, was called NextBus.
Yeah.
That is something worth considering. There's a little cost with it, but and of course, right now, cost is a concern for us, but it is something that we would consider.
Right. It makes getting around town in San Francisco very easy. I'm very impressed with it. Who has a similar size operation as Annapolis? I'm wondering about your benchmarking capability or opportunities, excuse me.
We are one of the smallest systems in the state. If I had to guess, it might be Frederick. Maybe Frederick might be a little large now. Maybe Carroll County may be similar to us. Ocean City may have a similar service. We're one of the smaller services, but just
around the country. You know,
it's difficult to say without really doing a little investigating. That I haven't done yet.
My other question is, does the city have you enrolled in any kind of a transportation managers association? There must be something for people in your business.
Actually, I'm on the board of the Transportation Association of Maryland. I've been a board member now for going on 5 years.
Great.
I'm responsible I chair the training committee for that board.
Right. Is there a national group?
CTAA, which as a member of the Maryland Association, we're also members of CTAA, which is the national organization.
Okay. Is that helpful and worthwhile?
Absolutely. We just had our annual conference, and with that, we often bring in members of CTAA as part of the webinar series that we, especially this year, we couldn't meet, so everything was virtual. So we brought in some people from CTAA.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes.
Since we're on the subject, Mr. Gordon, can you give us some background on your experiences and your educational background when it comes to this area?
Yes, I've been in this business now, I don't want to say this too loudly, almost 50 years. I've worked for Prince George's County, the state of Maryland. I worked in Seattle for King County for several years and a few consultants. I have a master's degree in transportation from Morgan State University. I'm also on their advisory board in their National Transportation Center. So I've been at this for quite a while.
Don't you serve on several governors or state commissions or?
That would be the Transportation Association of Maryland and the Morgan State National Transportation Committee. I'm on their advisory board.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
You're welcome. Back to any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll try to get you finished through your slideshow. Last week, I had the opportunity to be acting mayor, and you're privy to a lot of these meetings, which is kind of fun. And one of them, the BRT meeting, and this sort of dovetails into Al's question about comparable cities. What I heard, which is quite good, is that if I understand this correctly, the federal funds are allocated. They're unfortunately allocated equally to county, regardless of how you're doing. But there's another funding source, I'm not sure what it was, that's based on ridership. And our ridership was, when I saw this chart, was 0.41% ridership, which was very high compared to comparable towns in the state. So as much as I didn't understand that, I thought that was really good news. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, as we go through it, and there's some slides in here that
okay, I'll let you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting back to the slides, slide 7 is compliance with state and federal reporting requirements. We meet quarterly with Maryland MTA locally operated transit providers. In fact, we get grants from that organization. So in addition to the grant funding, we're required to meet with them quarterly. And they also have a set of standards, some of which are included in our performance standards, as well as the Federal Transit Administration. We're required to submit data to the National Transit Database. And at this point, we're in 100% compliance with both. So slide 8. Some of our long-term goals include the implementation of micro-transit service, which would incorporate on-demand, dynamic routing and scheduling, and e-hailing. I've started some discussions with some of the private providers, like I've just recently talked with Uber about this. As many of you know, there's a contractor coming in to rebuild Hillman Garage, and that contractor has a mobility consultant associated with them. That consulting is VIA, which is a national, actually it may be international, mobility company, and we will be talking to them as well. So this may be delayed a bit due to COVID, because a lot of what's associated with this has to do with ridership, and with ridership down, and frankly, I would think there'll be some changes in commute patterns as ridership builds back up. So that would be included in some of these discussions. Slide 9, please. Some of the changes and improvements we made last year, which were also in line with our 5-year transit development plan, included the acquisition of 2 new buses. We have a vehicle replacement plan that we're probably in year 3 of, and that may also be affected by funding situations now. But the vehicles have been on order now for probably 6 months or more, and we're being told by the manufacturer that we probably won't see delivery until January or February of next year. And that's primarily due to them having problems getting parts. I'm sorry.
What does a heavy duty bus mean? Is that in terms of capacity or?
Well, not really. It actually lasts a little longer than a medium duty bus. The standard for a heavy duty bus is 10 years. We've got a few now that are reaching that milestone. So we wanted to replace a couple of those with heavy duty buses for the big routes that we have, the buses that serve the mall, Eastport Shopping Center. Those routes get at capacity. So we needed to keep big buses out there. But when I say big buses, these aren't the big 36-footers. These are 30-foot buses.
Okay.
But the real distinction is the life term of the vehicle. It's a 10-year vehicle.
Okay. What is the capacity of the buses we have on order?
36 passenger.
Okay. Thank you.
We've developed and implemented a new FTA mandated safety management system. This was something that FTA required. We've since met that requirement. We've offered free fares to students through K through 12 over the last couple of years, and that's grown significantly. In addition, earlier this year, we used the circulator to provide student access to meals during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Let's see. We continue, as I said, we have a 5-year vehicle replacement plan. We continue to pursue capital grants for vehicle replacements. Our plan was to replace 2 vehicles a year. That may change this year with the changes in state funding, which I'm going to talk about shortly. We're going to be working with the parking contractor to rebrand the circulator to attract more riders in preparation for replacement of Hillman and City Dock. We suspect we'll have to do some real marketing to get the word out on those changes. And one of the things that we've seen some complaints about is the way the circulator looks now with the wrap, and there are passengers who are concerned that they can't be seen sitting inside of it. So there'll be some changes to that down the road. We've installed a few multi-space parking meter kiosks to replace the single space meters, which are more and more inoperable and aging. As you all probably know, single space meters are being replaced by either kiosk or a mobile app, which is the next thing I'll talk about a little bit. And that by doing this with the kiosk or the mobile app, we no longer have that capital cost to replace those meters. We began implementing Park Mobile last year, and I think we were up to, what was it say, 519 transactions, 142 users. I'm sure that may have doubled by now. I just don't have the most recent numbers on that. And for those of you that participated in the retreat last weekend, you heard Alderwoman Tierney talk about a pilot to move Park Mobile into the residential parking districts. We think that could result in potentially some of those transient parkers either parking in the garages or at the very least paying for parking in those neighborhoods. We've had a capital project on the books now for a couple of years to replace the gates, the access control system at Knighton Garage, Gotts Court, and the locking lot. Page 11. Due to the pandemic, we are anticipating reductions in ridership and fare revenue this year. Ridership through the first 9 months, as you can see, it increased by 3.4%, and we just recently submitted our monthly report to the city manager, and ridership is now down by 33% over what it was this time last year. Slide 12, please. And this is just an illustration of the ridership over the past 3 years. And as you can see, for FY21, it is a third of what it was. Next slide. This is one of the graphs that we just submitted in this month's monthly report. It shows the quarterly trends over the first quarter of FY21. And as you can see from the colors, the purple, I guess that's magenta, is FY21. And you can see it's way down in comparison to the last 2 fiscal years. Slide 14. Same thing with citations. Citations are less than half of what they were in FY19. Slide 15. Meter transactions as well. We're at 72,000 as compared to the last 2 years. And these are all just recently completed graphs for the first quarter of FY21.
Question.
Yes.
Why are you showing a pie chart? I'm just not clear why.
We could have shown this. That's because I allowed the deputy to create the charts. I think the last quarter he did not have a pie chart. I can certainly have that changed to a bar graph.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't tell much as a pie chart. Thank you.
Okay. Slide 16 is vehicle park trends. Again, the green is FY20, and I think this was through the first 3 months of the year. Slide 17 is our FY21 budget. I figured I'd put that in there and give you all a chance to look at the very slight increase over FY20. And I believe that increase, and Jody, you probably can speak to this, is more likely to do with salaries than anything else. Everything else stayed basically the same.
That is correct. That is correct. The only increases were on the salary line.
Okay. Slide 18 is the impacts to our state grants effective this year. Our fixed route grant was cut by 192,000. The capital grant, there will be no state match. Up to this point, the state was matching the grants with 10%. Now that entire 20% will be borne by the city. We didn't get any preventative maintenance grant, and in prior years that was at $400,000. But the good thing this year is we did receive $4.2 million in CARES Act funding, and that's going to help us tremendously through this year and next. We've only requested the use of $700,000 so far, and that would have been for the fourth quarter of FY20, and the remaining funds will be available for the coming fiscal year. The issue is at this point is we haven't received any agreement, so we can't spend the money until we get the agreement from the state. I have a meeting coming up this week. This is our quarterly meeting with the state, and I'm hoping to hear that those agreements are ready to be sent so we can start drawing down on those funds.
Question.
Yes.
Al Kirshner. So what's the net effect of the CARES Act funding? Are we going to be way ahead, still behind?
No. We're being told by the finance director that in past years we would get our local match from the parking fund, and the way things are going, there will be no parking funds to share with transit this year. So the CARES Act funding is going to fill that void for us.
Completely?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
My projections are that it'll fill the gap this year. There won't be much, if any, to carry into 22. This grant can be used for in place of the missing revenue, so it can cover any transit operation cost. So it's very useful that their 4.2 million was flexible in that way. And yes, since the parking fund revenues are down, we're trying to do some incentives to get people to come downtown to the businesses. The parking revenues are down even further than what we had originally anticipated. So they will not be able to subsidize the transportation fund this year, and they'll have to get that revenue from the CARES Act funding.
I was just looking at trying to do the math on this slide. You have 4.2 million plus.
We use 741,000 in FY20 already.
Okay, and then you were taking away 192,680. I don't know what the number is in the state grant match. I see the percentage, but I don't know how that translates into a real number. Any ideas there?
I'm sorry, what was on the state grant match?
Yeah, the capital grants, we're going to lose, we're going to have to come up with 10% more.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. However, I do expect, and Jody, you don't know this yet, there's a possibility we could get preventive maintenance funding in the next month or so. We've been told that the state's projections, and I'm sure you probably all heard this, their initial projections were off. They anticipate a little bit more revenue. So there's a possibility we will get back the preventative maintenance funding. And I'll keep you posted as we move forward on that.
So the
That's,
capital
good news.
grants, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's good news.
Yeah, the capital grants, that's an issue for us. We were planning to purchase 2 vehicles. Those vehicles cost about $360,000. So it looks like we may have to forego at least 1 vehicle in the next year if we can still move forward with the 1 vehicle. That's the biggest part of this. And of course, with that means we have to do more maintenance on older vehicles. And I believe that is the last slide. Yeah. And if there are any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Quick question. On slide 4, you had an operating cost that you showed.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, your operating cost does not include salaries and benefits, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the operating cost for the bus system, including S&B?
I think it's 4.2.
4.2.
I don't know if I have a slide in here for it, but I'm pretty sure it's 4.2.
So then, so we're 1.5 million is the actual cost for the transit, for the buses, correct?
Correct.
Net to the city.
Yes.
Okay. Net
Question, Mr. Payon.
Okay.
Thanks. Mr. Gordon, I have a question. If we stay on this page that Hillary has up now, there's the operating revenue that has the mix of fares, grants, county subsidy, and advertising. And it looks like we're going to see a decrease on the grant side and on the subsidy side. So for 21, you're going to see a decrease there. And can I ask you, what is the trend of the mix of these different components over, say, the last 3 to 4 or 5 years? Is the fares number decreasing as a percentage of the overall? That's a question.
Actually, no. They've remained pretty steady with a slight increase. But of course, now it's difficult to say what the future is going to hold. A lot of people out of work. It's just difficult to say at this point.
Right. Okay.
But ridership was showing an increase. And of course, with that, fares were slightly up.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much. This is a very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Just for clarity, so I know because people ask, this CARES funding, so my understanding is that this year we're going to be spending $741,000 plus change, and then Jody estimates that the delta will be used up to offset revenue in 2021. Is that my understanding?
So when we said the 740,000 number, that was for FY20. That ended on June 30, 2020. That's our fiscal year. So when I said the rest of it will be used up in 21, I meant fiscal 21, which is by June 30 of 21.
Okay.
And we had hoped earlier that we might be able to carry some of it into the next year because this funding does not time out on December 30 like the other CARES Act money we got. Okay. We can carry it forward into future years, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to carry it any further than fiscal 21.
And so what is our exposure on not receiving these grants, Director Gordon? one of them was one of them maintenance, or, I mean, do we have a plan B?
Preventative maintenance.
Yeah,
Yeah. We made allowances for that within the CARES funds, but if we get the $400,000, it's going to help. Any addition will help.
okay. So the pandemic has affected grant funding.
Absolutely.
Let us know if there's anything we can do from the city council.
We've already, the administration has already sent a letter to the state indicating our concerns with the reduction, not only in funds, but in their regional services that affect the net.
Yeah, that little scare we had.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Director Gordon.
You're welcome.
I have one more question when we go back to the CARES Act funding for a second. The 4.2 million, is that just transportation or is that citywide?
Just transportation.
Just transportation.
Just transportation.
Are we using all 4.2 to offset our budgeted expenses, or are there things that are we using CARES Act funding for non-budget items?
It's all budget items.
Good, thank you.
One last question from me. Several years back, there was a big push to go to a regional transportation system. And what is the status of that? Where are we on that?
Well, that apparently hasn't worked out so well, but we are in discussions with the county. We're about to start a feasibility study. Actually, it's the county study that we're participating in to determine the feasibility of a unified transit system involving just the city and county. So that should be coming up in the not too distant future. The study that you spoke of resulted in RTA taking over both Anne Arundel County and Howard County services. And from what I know, that's not working out so well now. And I think that might be the impetus for the county conducting this feasibility study with the city to see how we can work together to improve transit services just in the city and county.
The one that failed, or you say is not performing, are we participating in that right now?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Oh, I have a question. Mr. Gordon, what's the status of the newspaper article that we saw in the Capitol, I guess about 2 weeks ago, about the service, the state service, MDOT service to Baltimore? What's the status of that?
I don't know the status of it at this point. I don't think anything has changed. They did send out a notification that they were going to cut those services. And that's why I said we sent a letter signed by the mayor to the state indicating our concern about them cutting those routes. They haven't been cut as of yet. I know in Baltimore, they started out the same way and they've since restored some routes that they were going to cut. I think the same thing, I'm hoping the same thing happens with those regional routes. And the routes you're referring to are commuter buses 210 and 215 and the 70 bus that goes to the Eastern Shore. So I haven't heard anything lately in terms of that taking effect yet. There is a, excuse me, there's an MDOT tour. Every year they do a tour of funding for the various jurisdictions. I know the tour meeting is coming up and I've attended in all past years. I'll also be on it this year virtually. And if necessary, I may bring up the issue again and express the city's concern.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Question?
All right. Are there any more questions?
Question?
Mr. Kirshner.
Mr. Gordon, I'm just curious, the unification effort, is there any projection if that might save us some money?
Don't know yet. That would come up as part of the study. I would think that would be a major part of it.
Okay.
So I don't know at this point.
And my last question is, being a New York City boy, I don't know how you, when I have visitors here, how do you access the routes? I mean, I'm saying like a friend of mine wanted to go out to the mall from my house in Eastport. Is there a web, do you do this by the website?
They are on the website. That was one of our goals, to create a mobile app that you could have handy in your phone. But right now they are on the city website.
Okay, so it starts with point to point. So if I say,
Every stop and every time point is on, the schedule is actually on the
I'll look
website.
at it. Thank you very much. Good brief.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Gordon, thank you very much for the presentation. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, the next order of business is the old business, the Department of Transportation versus Planning and Zoning RFP. I kind of thought that we had at least temporarily put that to bed. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. I thought we had put that to bed at our last meeting, but is there any more discussion to be had on that? I thought we had temporarily put it to bed. We need to.
Can I ask what you mean by put it to bed?
Well, I thought that we had decided that we would not be proceeding that way.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I could be wrong. I don't have it in my notes. Anybody care to discuss that? Yes, Mr. Kirshner.
We did, I mean, in light of our budget, Mark, we don't have much capability, and we talked about reposturing our whole approach to our mission.
Yes.
I think you probably met with the city manager on that, I believe.
I did.
Okay.
And,
I mean, my recollection is, and I have my notes, I can flip through them. I don't think it's that important to prove it, but we sort of decided that 25K as a budget mark for the year is not going to allow us to do much. And that given the past, our first and last audit, that maybe a new approach might be worth considering.
But that's absolutely my recollection. I agree. Anybody else care to comment on that? And this is temporary. I mean, we may very well get back into that at some point, but I think we need to go at least in a slightly different direction. And we'll discuss that in a few moments. Yes.
Yeah. Alderman Payon, and the other thing that we talked about is what I mentioned earlier, and that's more of a focus on the performance measures. And
yeah, absolutely.
I agree with Al that we still need work and are still interested in getting the departments trained, but at least have these sort of meetings like we had today, or the briefings by the departments, and then figure out how we're going to evolve the performance measures so that they're improved, frankly, but then a system for tracking them as well. So we also need to wrap up the Rec and Park, and I see that's the next agenda item, but we need to wrap that one up as well.
Yeah,
so
well,
talk about that in a minute.
That's regrettably, that's not going to happen today, because this is a good segue into that Mr. Trader, the director, is on annual leave this week. And I suggested the number 2 person come over, and that was not, well, apparently not a good idea. I don't think that person was either not available or is not knowledgeable on what changes have been made. So we'll put that on the calendar for our next meeting. A little disappointed in that, but we do allow our employees to take vacations, so not much we can do. The next item on the agenda is the Ordinance 03017 update. This is the Audit Committee legislation. And happily, this will be introduced on first reader on next Monday. The three council members here on our committee will be co-sponsoring, and it's time for me to get to work to educate my colleagues and make sure that they are aware of what we do and can do, and the need for the legislation. I don't have 3017 exactly in front of me. Alderwoman Tierney or Pendell Charles, do you have a copy of that in front of you by chance?
Yeah, I was confused with the number you gave. The ordinance number you gave, I think, was the performance measures. Does it have a number?
Well, no, I don't think it does.
No, it
That's why
doesn't. Yeah,
I'm a little confused too. I apologize.
I have it on my phone.
Well, so do I, but I've also got our agenda on my phone. So
Oh, okay.
that actually, I think it's a different number. Both of the numbers we have. So 3720 was the one we were interested in, not 3017. Well, we'll skip on that for now. And my apologies to the committee. But at any rate, you should know that our audit committee legislation will be introduced and will be acted upon. Not all in one evening, not all on Monday, but the process will start, and I don't foresee any huge problems in the way, but you never can tell. We'll be following up on that. New business, the 2021 calendar. I think one of the, we voted back at the beginning of the year to meet every other month. And we have called several special meetings of the committee recently, since really since the summertime. And the only month that we have skipped recently has been the month of August, when
hi.
yeah, there's
You want to
there's
talk
the
about it?
committee legislation as it stands. I'll get back to that in a minute. Let's finish talking about the calendar. What is the sense of the committee in terms of meeting every other month? Is it, I think we will be able to do that without losing out on anything in the very near future, if not right away. We have had some matters that I think needed our attention on a monthly basis, and that was the reason for meeting every month. Anybody have any thoughts on this, whether or not we can meet every other month? I mean, I don't want to meet if we don't have to, for sure. I suppose if I had my druthers, I would probably meet next month and then call it a day until January, and then see where we are in terms of workload. But it's totally up to discussion at this point. And we did vote to do it previously every other month. Nothing stops me from calling us a quote special end quote meeting. And that's what I've exercised my authority to do of late. But Alderwoman Tierney, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I think, I can't believe I'm saying this because what is this, my fourth committee? But I think now that we're tasked with these performance measures, and we have a process that you and City Manager Jarrell worked out.
Yes.
I think our responsibility now is probably to meet every month, because there are a lot of a lot of these to go through. I mean, that would be my understanding, that would have a department each meeting, and by the time we're done, it would be in the budget cycle. What do you think?
Okay. Any other comments?
I absolutely and enthusiastically concur. We've got a bunch of departments we need to hear from. I think the performance of the committee on this legislation is an excellent example. That's been in the mix since last November.
A year. Yep.
Right. And this committee, if it's going to be relevant to the city government, has really got to start doing some things. I mean, it really has to be visible. I was stunned when I saw that it was on the council agenda to look at the performance goals, and that information had never even crossed this committee's desk. And I think I agree with Alderwoman Tierney. We need to get going here, and we need to start being relevant. I found the 2 briefings today very, very useful. They can certainly be refined a little bit, but it was a great step in the right direction.
Well, you'll hear in a minute that we will be reviewing that legislation. One of the ordinances was to simply allow us to receive the information that had been provided by a number of department heads. The other one, I actually knew was going to be postponed when you had made your comments. So, and it has been, and it's been referred to us for comment. We have 90 days. So I'm looking at the clock, and my guess is that we don't really have time for a protracted discussion on the, I think it's the 037 that I can't remember. One of the 2 is certainly merits our attention, and the council wants to know what, if any, recommendation we have with regard to it. We're acting the same as any city council committee is acting in that regard. Typically, legislation on first reader is referred to, the finance committee, public safety, rules, and city government, depending on what the subject of the legislation is. I recognized, as you did, that this is something we ought to be reviewing, and we will be. We do have the opportunity to do that and to discuss it and to make a recommendation to the council as a whole. We will have the right to suggest amendments, which technically Alderwomen Tierney, Charles, or myself, Alderman Payon, would be technically making the amendments, I suppose. Well, no, they're committee amendments, so, but it would go through one of the 3 of us. So we will have the opportunity to do that. And I recognize the same thing that you do, that when something comes along that I think we ought to take a look at, I'll have the mayor refer it to us. Yes.
Well, I was very concerned, not only that we weren't involved, but even at this point that it's going to come to us still troubles me a bit. We should be on the bow wave of this thing, not chasing the ship. I mean, this is performance measures, the audit committee. It's obvious that we should have been involved right from the start. I mean, the minute those things were put on into one document, they should have gotten to us. And I think we got to demand that and make sure everybody knows that we were concerned that we weren't included. So I want to be on the bow wave, not flotsam and jetsam.
I have, and we have, we're the only committee that this was referred to. Mm-hmm. And I believe consideration of this was postponed for 90 days. So the fact that we don't do it, and it wasn't on account of us, there were other reasons for it. We can easily do this at our next meeting, and I will reserve considerable amount of discussion time. Typically when these go to committee, I think my colleagues would agree that it can take 5 minutes in committee. It can take hours in committee of committee time. we will have the opportunity to thoroughly discuss this, the same as we would have if it were on first reader referred to us. I might say that had it been referred to us on first reader, it wouldn't change that the council's not acting on it for 90 days. It was not postponed for us to review it. The sponsor of the legislation had other reasons he wanted to coordinate it with some other things. So we haven't lost any time. You shouldn't feel like we have. And I totally agree with what you said. It's up to the three of us really, when something comes up before the council, to make sure that it gets properly referred to us when we think it's appropriate. So,
Okay, thank you.
your message is heard loud and clear and taken to heart. And I think there isn't any of the three of us that would disagree with what you said. So, okay, Alderwoman Tierney.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just very quickly, I'm confused. It sounds like we have a task. You introduced at the beginning of the meeting that we would be reviewing departments and their performance measures. So that will probably take time. Each meeting will have a certain department.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost 9:30. We don't have time to, I think it's going to take some time for us to discuss.
So how does that, there's a disconnect between that and then reviewing the ordinance that actually attaches the performance measures, which we have 90 days to do. So how do those marry into each other? Do you understand my question? We have it's 03720.
I think we need to look at the performance measures that we've received, but I also think we need to look at the legislation. I mean, they're separate, but they're certainly closely related. We need to look at the legislation too.
Right.
Make sure that this is on the books to happen every single year. It's supposed to happen now. It's supposed to have happened, but I think a number of our city managers' predecessors kind of looked the other way because they got less formal reports, and this codifies what exactly is going to be demanded of the department heads and what we ought to be receiving. So,
okay, so we look
at both.
Oh, okay. I think I'll have City Manager Jarrell answer.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that we could. I wish that we could bring all the departments in and do a deep dive before this legislation moves forward. That would be the ideal, but I just don't think we have time.
Right.
So hopefully there'll be an opportunity for you all to review the legislation and comment on it. We'll have Lynn Farrell at the next meeting so we can discuss broadly that legislation and broadly the performance measures. But then we intend to keep doing the deep dive with the departments after that, so that then when they come back later to report and update the performance, you'll be familiar with not only what the performance measures are, but who the directors are. And I know you already are, but for everybody else on the panel that's not familiar with the directors, this will be sort of their introduction. So unfortunately, we have to do both of those things in parallel, and that's not the optimal, but that's what we have to do. And it's a resolution, and as Alderman Pale mentioned, it will be updated again next year because these are annual performance reports from each department.
Thank you. I think Mr. Cardillo had his hand up.
Thanks. I was going to ask to call a question regarding voting on the 2021 calendar.
Okay. Question has been called regarding the meeting every month or every other month, and there's no further discussion. Well, maybe there is.
Mr. Kirshner.
Yes. Am I muted? Okay, I'm on live. First, a quick response to Alderwoman Tierney. The performance requirement is in the code. Okay, I brought that to the council, to the committee's attention back in July of 2018. And as a matter of fact, the city manager at that time was a little bit surprised and complimented me and said it was a nice catch. So there's that item. And I was looking at my notebook. I don't have it in front of me. My notebook's like 3 inches thick, but I can find it and get it to you. But it's, the performance measures are in the city code right now and look like they're fairly adequate. So following up on what Jim said, you call the question. I'd like to make the motion so we can call the question. I'd like to move that we go back to monthly meetings, the third Monday of the month.
Okay.
That's
Do
my
I hear a second? Is that a second?
Let me
Mr.
go off here.
Cardillo?
Yes, second. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, and the question's been called anyway. All in favor of going back to monthly meetings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we unanimously agreed to keep working hard. Thank you. Okay, the next order of business appears to be committee vacancies, community members. We have, the way this works is that the three alderpersons on the committee get together and vote on replacements, vacancies when they occur. And we have reviewed the resume of Julia Donnelly, who was nominated by Mr. Cardillo. Her resume is, I think, outstanding. I think she will make an excellent member of the board. At least two of us, and Rhonda, I don't know if you had the opportunity or not, but both Alderwoman Tierney and myself spoke with Ms. Donnelly on the phone, and I was ready to put her in for adoption at this meeting. However, once we've nominated her, the council as a whole has to approve her. So her nomination is on the agenda for next Monday. I do not anticipate any problem at all. Her qualifications are fantastic. And I also checked on a couple of her references. Despite that obvious handicap that we have here on the committee with regard to her references, Mr. Cardillo being one of them. I did not talk with Jim. Obviously, he wouldn't have nominated her if he didn't think highly of her. I did get to speak to a reprobate named Leroy Moore, but despite that fact, I think he gave a very solid recommendation, and that's was good enough for me. So that's where we are on replacements. We still have one vacancy, assuming that that this in fact does get filled by Julia Donnelly. So if you know of anyone who might have an interest, who has the appropriate background, please let me know. I'm looking. I do have one or two possibilities in mind, but Jim, we can always consider the other nominee that you thought you had. I don't believe she ever sent in a resume, but if
That's correct.
if you think she may have an interest still, hey, we're open.
She's rethinking her outside commitments. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that happens. All right. Having said that, just a moment. We already talked about O3720 and R1720. Those are the two pieces of legislation regarding the wait a minute, I'm having a brain freeze regarding the annual department performance statements from department heads. There is the internal audit plan. Jody, can you address that? I actually, it's one of the things that the city manager and I talked about. Up on the board is the actual legislation that was introduced, by the way. It will not be ordinance XX20, but we didn't know the number that it will be. I'm guessing it'll be like high 50s or low 60s -20.
Won't that be -21?
Probably
No,
Yes.
because it's introduced in 20, so it's officially introduced on when the first reader occurs, which will be next Monday. So if it's even if it's not passed till 21, it would still maintain the 20 number in there.
I just thought it was a by fiscal year. So it's calendar year, isn't it?
Well, at the rate we're going, you're absolutely right to think it might not happen till 21. But
No, I was just curious if
not
there's
the case.
fiscal year on the legislation or calendar year, that's all.
No, it's calendar year.
It's calendar year out.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
And if this does not have an assigned number yet, it will get the 21 on it when we assign a number. It'll be -21.
That's not my understanding, but it's also not really a huge concern. I don't care what number they put on it, as long as we end up with this legislation. Internal audit plan. Jody, do you have some comments, helpful comments on that?
I'm not sure what it is you want me to comment on.
Well,
You're looking at that, I'm looking at the legislation and
yeah, this is
this has been developed over the course of time and we had it drafted at one time and I believe it's been through a redraft.
Yeah, so-
And
I thought we wanted to go over this so we don't hold it up anymore.
well, we're not holding this up. It's on the agenda for next
Okay.
month. So,
Okay, so we don't need to look at it anymore?
well, we do, but I don't think we formally need to look at it today. It's not going to come up. I don't think it's going to come up for a vote before we meet again anyway. So,
Is Jody's responsibility on here? What you were just talking about?
well, yeah, it's 20 minutes of 10, and
Oh, okay.
let's put that on the agenda for next month at
Okay.
this point. We'll move on down to reports, and I'm going a little bit out of order, but we have filed we have for discussion the third quarter report, which I think Kim furnished to you. It's rather brief. It's actually it's actually a little longer than perhaps it needs to be. The meat of the report is actually quite short. It really only covers July and September, and it does a very adequate job of describing what we have done. And I mean, I'm talking about the July and September meetings. I think it's absent major objection from anybody, I'm going to go ahead and get it filed if it hasn't been filed already. Has anybody had the opportunity to review it? There's not a lot to it. I don't think there's anything that we really need to change, but Mr. Kirschner.
Just a quickie for the future, not for this one. I'd just like to see our work, our comments have some closure to it. For instance, it said we reviewed, I don't remember, I have it in front of me, but it said we reviewed something. And that's just an activity. You know, we reviewed, found satisfactory. We reviewed and did something. I just would like to see an accomplishment or a closure to those in the future.
Okay.
Just a suggestion.
Has everybody had the opportunity to review this? It's really very short. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's a thing that's controversial or a thing that we really left off. Well, I will report, let the minutes reflect that we have reviewed it, and no one has any objections. So, okay.
Do we need a motion to approve the Q3
Well, it
report?
wouldn't hurt. I don't know that we need one, but go ahead. You can make the motion. We'll vote on it.
I move that we adopt as drafted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kirschner. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, let the record reflect that it was unanimously approved. All right, we have reports to be given. Jody, do you have anything? I know you're at home today.
I'm
Our director, finance director. Do you have any reports to be given today?
No, just that the auditors, the most important thing, the auditors will be starting soon on their year-end field work. They're going to be doing a lot of it remotely, as you may suspect. They're going to try to do almost all their audit procedures from their offices and from their homes.
All right.
And then we'll be drafting the city's comprehensive financial report soon. We've already done the first steps, so we'll be pulling that together soon.
The CAFRA.
CAFR, yeah. Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
All right. Can you be ready to give a report at our next meeting on internal audits in general, what we do, how we conduct them, what departments we do, how they're selected, that sort of thing? Just run us through a quick outline so we understand what what steps the city takes to do internal audits.
So if we have not conducted any internal audits generated by our own finance department. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, you've indicated several times over the last year or so that when it comes to doing audits, that we do internal audits periodically, and it was my understanding that we did run our own, did those. And if we don't, then okay, I need to know that.
So we do have the capability on staff. We just don't have the time to do them now and focus on departments, which is one of the reasons why the committee decided to move forward and do some of these audits. And we did the Rec and Parks audit and had a couple more lined up. And that's where we're at with the audits right now. So yes, we have not done any internal audits from our office. I do have staff that could handle that, and myself, I have an audit background. But right now there's just we're not fully staffed still.
Right. Well, let's hold off on a detailed discussion of that until next time because of the hour. I would like, it's an important issue and I would like to get into it, but I'm afraid it's 9:45. We're already 15 minutes over. So let's talk about it next time. Mr. Kirschner.
Yeah, I just want to echo my understanding of what Ms. Dickinson just said. I think we discussed that in detail several times, and we understood that there was not sufficient staff time to get engaged in that. I've got notes and recollections that we were not going to.
I do not recollect that being the case, that we weren't capable of doing it. I just remember talking about it and that we were capable of doing it. And it was my understanding that we did do it And apparently it's my misunderstanding that we did do it. But I don't really want to spend much more time on that today because of the hour. We
No,
can
I'm just agreeing with the finance director.
Well, we can talk after the meeting. We talk periodically anyway about audit committee, and that'll be the subject of perhaps our next conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. City Manager, quickly.
Yeah, just very briefly. So for the non-city council members on the on this committee, we had a budget meeting a week ago, Saturday. It was meant to be a retreat, but we only retreated to council chambers. But I think it was worthwhile. It was about a 4-hour meeting in which we discussed the councilors' priorities for the next budget cycle. It's going to be an extremely difficult budget cycle, as this year is proving to be a difficult budget year as well. But just so you know, we did have a budget meeting and started looking forward to the FY22 budget preparation, which will start in the November-December timeframe with the departments starting to put their budgets together. The other big thing is the COVID CARES money that we're spending. We've projected that we still have about $1 million of unobligated funding right now. That's scheduled to expire on December 30th. We're still hopeful that that will be extended because COVID is still going, as you all know. And when they first put this together back last spring, I think people thought that by the end of December that this would all be over and gone, and we would have moved on. And clearly that's not the case. So we're hoping that that money is extended beyond December 30th. But we just recently submitted, we're a sub-grantee to the county on that. So we just recently submitted an updated report to the county on those expenditures. So all of that's moving along very well. And that's all I have.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, their next meeting is scheduled for, I know Kim has it, but I think it's the 16th of November, 8 o'clock. I don't anticipate our being back into the council chambers at that point. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager?
We're hoping to move back into council chambers in January with meetings.
Yeah, okay.
So we're setting up the equipment and the room to allow that to happen, but that won't be till January.
All right, then I would anticipate another virtual meeting. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? Good news, things are looking up. I do. I met twice actually with the city manager. We discussed the direction and the future of the committee. And unlike the last city manager, I think Mr. Gerald is extremely supportive of what we're doing. And I think we agreed that we need to perhaps refocus. And we talked about this on the performance standards and related matters. I think we have a real contribution to make. I've talked to other colleagues on the council, and for the most part, they've totally agreed. They're anxious to hear from us. They understand that we have, the personnel we have on this committee, or it's first class. We'll get. They expect to get some good advice, and I've assured them that that will certainly happen, in my opinion. But that's about it I had in the way of announcements or for the good of the order. Does anyone else have anything? Seeing nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All against can sit in front of your computer all morning. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry we ran a little bit over.